Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to, well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I titled this episode in this way because I really want to support you to make change, sustainable, consistent change that makes a meaningful difference to your experience of anxiety. Also, for those of you who are parents or teachers supporting young people with anxiety, I really would love for you to, at the end of this episode, really feel more empowered and inspired to choose something to move ahead with, to put into practice. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Dr. Jodi Richardson, and I've decided to move the episode that I had planned for this week to a little later in the month because I've had the privilege for many, many years of presenting at conferences and also listening to other speakers. And what I realised is there's a key insight I share with every audience that I don't recall I've emphasised here on the podcast. And as soon as that occurred to me, I thought I need to jump in and record a new episode and share this insight with you. And the insight is this: please take one of the ideas that you've been learning and put it into practice. When I'm at a conference, I love to take the time to listen to other presenters because I consider that an opportunity to extend my own learning. And sometimes I'm wearing a parent hat, sometimes I'm wearing a professional hat, but usually it's both hats at once. That enables me to bring more knowledge to you. It enables me to feel more empowered in my own life as a parent. But one of the things that we can do when we hear information and we're gathering and garnering knowledge is we can feel a relief that we know more, we understand, and that's powerful in itself. But there's usually an opportunity to do something different, to make a change, however small. And that's what I'm inviting you to do today. And I thought what I'd do is I'd go back and highlight just 10 episodes from my podcast that might inspire you to go back and listen if you'd like some more information on each of these particular topics, and to just refamiliarize yourself with the learning around each of these points. And my invitation to you is to please choose one thing, just one, and bring with you a mindset of curiosity as you put this one idea into practice, and just reflect on the difference that it makes in your life or in the life of your classroom or in the life of your children. Because as I said at the beginning, and as I've titled this episode, nothing changes if nothing changes. It's not enough for us to know. We have to do something different. But it can feel overwhelming. And I know that if I have time with an audience of anywhere from 30 minutes to 60 to 90 to half a day to a full day, that there are multiple ideas that are shared and practical strategies that are shared always. And at the end of it, it can be hard to know where to start. And so I really invite you, before you move on from this episode, before you reconnect with whatever it is that you're doing after listening to this, is that you take just a couple of minutes for you to stop and think, what do I want to do differently? Because anxiety is treatable. There is so much we can do. And that's the very purpose for the work that I do and for the podcast, is to equip you with these strategies. But the very nature of anxiety can result in overwhelm and this idea that, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do first. I don't know what change to put in place. And I'm here to tell you that that's a really personal choice. It's completely up to you. There are no right or wrong answers here. Please just choose one thing, however small, and start to make that a consistent part of your day. One of the things that I often like to say is that, I love strength training. I absolutely love it. And we know that We would never ask anybody to lift an enormously heavy weight and to stand on an Olympic stage as a weightlifter and lift a heavy weight without having ever learned how to do it and built up slowly and consistently, training their muscles, training their brain, training their physiology, their mindset to be able to cope with the incremental change over time. So this is not the Olympics. We're not diving in deep. We're not having to do any heavy lifting. We start small, we start light, and we start with consistency, and we just see how it feels. So I'm going to highlight 10 episodes. I love even numbers. On another podcast I was asked recently, what are some of the quirky things about you, Jodi? And just as an aside, I love even numbers. And because I've been traveling around a lot, and sometimes I book my own flights and other times they're booked for me. And when they're booked for me, whoever's listening, if you're booking flights for me, I really like to sit in an even row. It's just a quirky little thing. And I recently did sit in row 15 and yes, I arrived safely. I know that it's okay. It wouldn't make me avoid flying, but it's just one of those quirky little preferences. I have a few other quirky little things I might share over time, but one of the things that I really, again, want to remind you is that I want you to think of this as an experiment. Just an experiment. Bring your curiosity with you as you implement one particular strategy and just see how it unfolds, how it makes you feel, what sort of a difference it makes for you in your life. And if you are working with young people, invite them to do the same. It takes the pressure away. It just invites an open heart and an open mind and an understanding that we're just going to try this on for size, see if it's a good fit. And if it's not, there are many, many other ways to approach these ideas. So, in episode 1, I spoke with the beautiful Carly Taylor and we spoke about acceptance. Acceptance when it comes to anxiety is very powerful. It doesn't mean we have to like having anxiety. It doesn't mean we have to say, yes, anxiety, hooray, come with me, let's be friends. But what I invite you to do is to think about your anxiety differently from the point of view that our brains have an alarm. The alarm gets triggered for a variety of reasons, some of which we are consciously aware of. Other triggers occur below the level of consciousness. When the alarm sounds, we can get some insights into what's happening through what we feel in our body. And when we can notice anxiety's rising and be aware that it's rising, that it is our brain's way of keeping us safe, and have this approach that is accepting of this is the way our body and brain operate. There are things that we can do to help settle it. There are things that we can do to help reduce the severity of the anxiety and over time reduce the frequency of the anxiety. And just this idea, well, hello, anxiety, like I called the podcast, this is something that is a part of who I am. And we're not looking to fight with it. We're not looking to get rid of it. When we have an open mind around the experience of anxiety and a willingness to experience the anxiety without fighting it, what ironically happens is it begins to settle sooner and we're in a better position to be able to put our strategies into place. So that was episode 1 with the beautiful Carly Taylor, and I invited Carly to be my first guest because I knew that she would really help me set the tone for what I really wanted the podcast to hold for you. Episode 8, I shared a tool that is known as diffusion, and this is a powerful tool that I use, and it's really become part of my DNA. I don't have to think really hard about putting this particular idea into practice anymore because I've rehearsed and practiced it so much. It's just become a natural response when worries show up. So episode 8, I talked about diffusion and strategies to help put distance between us and what we're thinking. And episode 2 is another episode that I recorded, just me, to support the strategy in episode 8. And episode 2's topic was all about metacognition, which is about being the observer and observing what we're thinking rather than getting so swept away in what we're thinking. Any one of these two strategies I've already mentioned, acceptance or this diffusion strategy, or even some metacognition from episode 2, any one of these will be a huge step forward in trying something new around your anxiety and seeing how you feel when you put it into practice. And it's not just about trying it on for a day, it's about a couple of weeks of just making sure that there are frequent reminders for you to use this strategy. And you can do that by wearing a different piece of jewelry, maybe drawing a little love heart on the back of your hand, maybe putting post-it notes on your laptop, maybe putting something on your calendar or a reminder on your phone. There are lots of lovely ways to bring these habits into our day and to practice them so that we are stronger when the big waves of anxiety hit and we're more prepared. Another really wonderful way to create habit change is to piggyback a new habit on an existing habit, like eating breakfast, cleaning your teeth, reading a book at night, going for a morning walk. If you've got a habit in place and you can piggyback a new habit on top of it, there's a great book called Atomic Habits that will help you explore that a little bit further as well. In episode 15, I talked about exercise as medicine. Growing up with anxiety that was undiagnosed for 20 years, I always exercised, and I never knew at the time how much it was contributing to my anxiety management. I played so much netball training and games and at the gym and out running, and it was something that was role modelled for me by my mum, and it was something that just really made me feel amazing and connected me with really wonderful people. So it was something that was a very big part of my life. We know from mountains of research, and you can go back to episode 15 to learn more, that there are beautiful neurotransmitters that are released when we exercise that change the way we feel. We also release a neurotransmitter called GABA, which helps put the brakes on our stress response. We release BDNF, which is like miracle grow for the brain. So it is extraordinarily powerful for our mental health, but also for our cognitive health and our longevity and our physical health, of course. So if you want to bring exercise into your regime, into your routine, you might be uncomfortable. In fact, you probably will be, and that's part of it. And Paul Taylor is writing a book that's being released soon. It's being released soon, called Death by Comfort. We would all benefit from being more willing to be more uncomfortable, to do the things that are important for us, to tolerate discomfort, and to recognize that the great stuff does happen on the other side of our comfort zone. So where can you stretch that boundary? And if exercise is it for you, start small. Walking is fantastic. Get some huff and puff. And even if it's just a few hundred meters down the road and back, just start and become consistent. And if you do it with a friend, you'll get all those beautiful benefits of the conversation and the connection. And if you're doing it outside, you have got that brilliant added support and nurturing and calming influence of being in green space, which is, again, the research will tell us that if you are looking out a window from your hospital room and you are looking at nature, you will heal faster, you will need less pain relief, you'll be discharged earlier. There are so many profound benefits from being in nature. So exercising outside with a friend will be a really beautiful way for you to help support your mental health. And again, a curious perspective. How do you feel doing it? How do you feel after? How do you feel afterwards, reflecting? How does it set you up for the day? How does it help you throughout the rest of your day? Reflect, be curious, take note of what difference it makes. Episode 17 was all about ending the struggle with anxiety. And a really great metaphor around this is the good old tug of war. If you are on one end and anxiety is on the other, trust me, the more you pull, the bigger and stronger your anxiety will grow, the more exhausted and tired and fatigued and focused you'll be on the anxiety. And it takes you away from being able to really focus on what's important in your life, freeing up your hands and your head and your heart to be able to turn away from the struggle and to be able to focus your attention on the things that really lift you up and light you up. So we don't need to demonize anxiety. We don't need to, turn to anxiety and tell him or her or it where to go. We can say, well, hello, anxiety, here you are. I know you're trying to keep me safe. Thanks very much. I'm doing okay. And if we turn our attention in the direction of what's important, we are able to take our focus off whatever's triggering the alarm in our brain. And that alone will help to settle our nervous system. And it helps move us forward in life towards the things that are really important. Episode 20 was with Sarah Rusbach. She's a grey area drinking coach, and we talked about alcohol and anxiety. And Sarah talked about the irony around the fact that many people, and predominantly at the moment, women I think she will have the details, and I've recently recorded another episode with her, which I'll release soon. I'm thinking it's around 35 to 55. It might be a slightly older age bracket, say 40 to 60, turning to alcohol more than any other demographic. And what we know about alcohol is, yes, there is a relaxation response when we do drink alcohol because it is a depressant, but there is a rebound of anxiety when the alcohol wears off after about 20 minutes. And there can be terrible, what we term hangxiety, which can hang around for 24, 48, 72 hours after a drinking session. So Sarah has shared very openly in that episode about her journey with alcohol, very, very openly, and how her life really has turned around since she gave it up. And she supports people to follow that journey, and has a really beautiful community of people that she supports, making that change of either reducing their alcohol or turning away from it altogether. So episode 20 is an episode to listen to. And there's another one coming up, as I mentioned. But if you are finding that alcohol is playing a really big role in your anxiety management and you're looking to try to dial it back, that's a really wonderful one to listen to. Episode 26 was with the wonderful Dr. Christy Goodwin. We spoke about digital well-being. Christy is full of incredible tips and tricks and insights, all evidence-based, and she is such a guru in this area, and she has such a lovely way with language. One of the things that she will talk about are digital guardrails, and some of the digital guardrails that I've set up are things like not having my social media on my front page of my iPhone. So my social media apps are in a folder on my phone, and if I go into the folder, I have to actually scroll through the folder to find the app. So it puts more of a barrier in place to accessing the app. It's not right there in front of you. Putting your phone out of your eyesight, out of your eye line, is powerful too, because just looking at it can prompt us to want to reach for it and pick it up and get that little squirt of dopamine. I've put a 10-minute timer on my Instagram. So if I do jump in to reply to a message or post something and I do start scrolling, which I frequently do because that's just the way the persuasive technology is designed to really hook us in quite quickly. After 10 minutes, I'll get a reminder to say, time to turn it off. And it's just enough to prompt you to say, oh, hang on a second. What is it that I am doing here? Like, I'm wasting time. It's time to get back to work or get back to my family or get back to whatever it is that I was doing before I got distracted. So episode 26, Digital Wellbeing with Dr. Christy Goodwin. One of the other things that she talks about is compare and despair. We are actually wired biologically to compare ourselves to other people. And this hails back to early days of humans, where if we weren't comparing ourselves and realizing whether or not we were pulling our weight, contributing to the tribe and doing our bit, we had to compare ourselves to know how we were faring against others around us. Because if we weren't contributing, we might be alienated from our tribe, which could mean certain death. And that would trigger an alarm in our brain, which could mean almost certain death, I should say. And so we are wired to compare ourselves, but right now, of course, when we are on our social media, we are comparing ourselves against somebody else's highlight reel. And so what I urge you to do is to minimize your time on social media because that can trigger your alarm in your brain. And also unfollow the people where you notice that when you see their posts, it just doesn't make you feel good. Unfollow them. You don't have to know what's happening in their life. You don't have to know. Episode 32, Mindful Practices with Corey Jackson. One of the most profound things Corey said in this episode was about mindfulness. Look, we've all heard about mindfulness. It's been a buzzword for years. I asked one of my children, what is mindfulness? Because they have a mindfulness program at school. And this child of mine, who shall remain nameless, said, it's lying under a table listening to music at school. And I was like, okay, interesting. So Corey and I talked about what mindfulness is. And what I can say to you here is that when we have anxious thinking, and I say we because if you're new to the podcast, I live with it, and that's why I'm so passionate about this work, is that we have very future-focused thinking. So we can focus on the what ifs, the unexpected, the uncertainty. Uncertainty drives anxiety. And we can have catastrophic thinking. And when our attention is in the future focused on these events, highly unlikely events, it's triggering this alarm and it's keeping this anxiety response fueled in our brain and in our body. When we can bring our attention back into our life, in what's happening in the moment, then we remove our attention from the threat and it gives our mind more of an opportunity to start to settle and our nervous system to start to settle as well. Corey's quote that I just loved was, we don't practice mindfulness to get better at mindfulness. We practice mindfulness to get better at life. So you might have been thinking about mindfulness. It's very hard to do when you're highly anxious all the time. So you don't have to sit and have a formal practice. You could have mindful moments where you're enjoying your cuppa, where you're really mindfully present when you're in a conversation with one of your children or your partner or a friend or a colleague. You might decide to be really mindful when you're going for a walk and pay attention to the patterns and the textures on the leaves and the grass and the sounds that you hear around you. You don't have to have a formal seated practice, but it's a very, very powerful way. And we know 8 weeks of mindful training, regular mindful practice, can help reduce the sensitivity of the alarm in our brain to threat and help us more easily regulate our emotions, including anxiety. Episode 42, I recorded alone, and that's all about self-compassion. Is self-compassion a practice that you would like to bring into your daily practice? So when something goes wrong, which we have ups and downs every single day, is self-compassion something that you would like to bring in to your routine? And how could you remind yourself to be compassionate to yourself, to be kind to yourself, to be able to put your hand on your heart and notice a moment of suffering, to recognize that suffering is part of being human, that you are not alone. You are not alone. And may you show yourself the kindness that you would show a dear friend who is experiencing the same challenge. Self-compassion is powerful, and perhaps that's the one thing that you'd like to do differently as a result of listening to episode 42. 2 more to go. Episode 48, I recorded this episode with Dr. Libby Weaver, Rushing Women's Syndrome, and it was such a fascinating conversation, and she helped us get to the heart of why we rush, why we feel the need to keep doing more, keep being more, keep producing more, keep saying yes. And so it's a really insightful episode to listen to if you feel as though you would benefit from slowing down, and I think that's most of us. Listening to episode 48 with Dr. Libby would be a really beautiful place to return to. And then think about how you can start to put one of the practices that she recommends into place in your own life. Remembering that when we say yes to someone else, we're saying no to something else. And that when we have our boundaries in place and we're careful with our boundaries, other people respect them. And in fact, it's beautiful role modeling to let other people know that they can do the same. So boundaries for ourselves, for our time, our energy, It's really important because we need to take care of ourselves so we can be the best we can be to look after other people around us. And last of all, episode 51, Dr. Wendy Troxell sharing the covers. Sleep is important when it comes to our anxiety. My family are very well aware of how I feel when I am not sleeping well. I'm not getting the amount of sleep that I need. It's something we routinely sacrifice. It's a biological need that is extremely important. And so protecting our sleep is something that we can all do when, particularly for those of us who live with an anxiety disorder or frequent extreme anxiety that's getting in the way of life. That's really how we look at an anxiety disorder. Or if anxiety is just something that bubbles up from a situational perspective, sleep will help every single one of us to be able to function better, feel more energized, and be in a better frame of mind and mindset to be able to call on and draw on the skills and strategies that we want to put in place to help us really manage and reduce our anxiety and to be able to live life with it so that we're really moving forward and doing all the things that are important to us and not waiting any longer. So I've shared 10 ideas with you today. There are so many more in other episodes of the podcast. I just wanted to remind you of these ones. But my invitation to you is, please choose one. Please choose just one and start in the smallest way you can. Bring it into your life as a consistent practice, even if it's 2 beautiful breaths where you're focusing your attention on your inhale and your exhale. Your mind may wander after you've barely inhaled the first time. That's okay. When you notice your mind has wandered, thank your mind. Thank you, mind. Return your attention back. That is the practice. Please be kind to yourself. It takes practice, and eventually those wandering thoughts become less sticky. It's easier to maintain your attention on what it is that you are focusing on, and that mindfulness muscle will grow. That's just one of the many things that you can do that will make a really powerful difference for you and your anxiety. Please choose one. Decide what you're going to do, because you have the power here to be able to make a really big difference for yourself. And I know, trust me, when you are filled with anxiety, it can feel hard to decide. Decision-making can be difficult. So be kind to yourself, take it slow. Maybe ask somebody around you to help remind you to take good care of yourself. Tell them what the practice is you've chosen, and maybe bring in a little bit of extra support to remind you so that you can use it regularly and start to become curious and reflect on how it's helping you to feel. So that's it from me today. It's my pleasure to be here with you and to share this episode with you. And if you think this will help somebody in your circle, please share the podcast. They might find that this particular episode is a bit of a springboard into being able to make some really meaningful change. I really hope that this episode has acted as a real springboard for you. And please, jump onto Instagram. Jump onto the post where I post about this episode. Let me know what it is you're deciding to do. I'd really love to know. Please take care, won't you? Please stay in touch and look after yourself, won't you? All right, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.